Chapter 1, Part 4. The mysterious knight from AD 603 was the key to finding the answers, I felt certain. If I could discover who he was, then I could find out who I was, or even if I was there with Matthew in that life. I just knew our two destinies were intrinsically linked. It would be this secret destiny which would lead me to finding the songlines, where I could contact Mum. Every free minute I had was spent in search of the answers. I referred back frequently to the notes I made in my notebook from our visit with Melinda. From what Mum had revealed, we knew the knight had fought a giant and was awarded a red dragon on his shield by a king who ruled in AD 603. How many kings could there have been during that time in history? And how many of them awarded the red dragon shield? King Arthur was perhaps the only medieval king that I knew, and my research had to begin somewhere. Was it too much to expect that Arthur could be the king Mum had mentioned? The timeline matched the one given by Mum. I followed the lead to the next clue, another detail critical to the trail. There were 12 knights at his round table. I searched the internet, and in error I would be redirected to an unrelated page, yet there was still the missing link to move me forward. The same book appeared twice in different sections of the local library. I didn't take much notice until I saw it again, lying in front of me on the floor. I bent down to pick it up. It was a small, tattered blue book, Mary's Message to the World. As I read the title, I remembered Mum's flame that she passed on to me that night in Spain. The same flame was on the cover of the book. It was a clue from Mum. I added it to my growing pile. "I could be one of King Arthur's knights," Matthew joked when he called me later that night. "I've been wondering the same thing," I said, trying not to think about how much I missed him. It was especially difficult in the evenings, when the house was quiet and Jordan was asleep in her bed. I don't remember being lonely in the 10 years I was by myself before I met him, yet on those nights, I couldn't have felt more alone. After I said goodnight to him over the phone, I continued to piece together the night's story, a welcome distraction from being without his company. In the back of one of the library books I'd collected, I found the email address of a professor of medieval history at the University of Cambridge. I sent him an email, in the hope that he still worked there. The weeks passed. I carried on my research into the kings and knights of the Middle Ages. Mum was very specific with the date, I remember. The neighbours' curtains twitched, as they always do when Matthew pulls up into the driveway. It was nearly lunchtime. He'd found a moment to come and see me, and I ran to greet him at the door, unable to wait any longer to tell him the astounding news. "You were right! You are one of King Arthur's knights, a famous knight from medieval history." "Are you sure?" he laughed, giving me a hug. Taking his hand, I guided him along the corridor into the kitchen, to show him the email message from the professor. King Arthur was the only king on record during AD 603 to award the red dragon to his knights. Matthew's eyes widened as he stood up tall, with a new air of confidence. "I'm one of King Arthur's knights." I smiled, happy to see him discover his self-esteem. I'd always suspected it was there, waiting to be found. From the moment we'd first met the year before, sitting next to each other at a party, I knew he was my knight. He was the one I'd been searching for as a young girl filled with romantic dreams, gazing out across the Yorkshire hillsides from our farm in England. Little did I know then that when I eventually found him, he would turn out to be an actual knight, and that we'd always been destined to meet. Our eyes had locked in instant recognition on that first night, and we'd chatted till the early hours without a second to catch a breath. We were both oblivious that the party had ended and all the guests had gone. Reluctantly, we'd said goodbye as he walked me to my door, and I knew I would see him again. The next day he sent me flowers. We haven't gone a single day without seeing each other since. "How does one address a knight?" I asked playfully. "Sir will be fine." I shook my head, rolling my eyes at him. "Do you know anything about King Arthur's knights? How will we find out which one I am?" he asked impatiently. "Well, there was Lancelot, who was a bit of a scoundrel. Maybe it's him," I teased. "Mum did give us some clues saying you were a giant of a man." "And still am," he joked. I couldn't help but laugh, though a pang of sadness filled my heart as the enchantment was broken by the beeping of his phone, alerting him to the text from one of his daughters. I knew he would soon have to leave, and another day would pass until I could see him again. He must have sensed my thoughts. Tenderly he leaned towards me and touched his lips to mine. I closed my eyes to savour the magic in my heart until I would see him again. Reluctantly our lips parted as the phone beeped for a second time, and I knew the moment was over. "I have to go," he said quietly, taking my hands and holding them close to his chest. "I'll come back and see you tomorrow." Standing in the doorway, I waved goodbye as I watched his van lights disappear into the distance. Gone so soon, I'm not sure he heard the spirit's voice as she called to her beloved across the breeze. Her words of urgency sent a chill through my body. "My love, you must wake up. Remember who you are. Your heart holds the key. Plato spoke of our love. We are Solomon and Sheba, unified at last, you and I. So long parted, my love, though never truly apart. Nothing can break our bond. Together always as one, beloved bride and groom, joined as the sun and moon."